Hello, this is Curt Pringle, and this is another edition of Talking Issues. We like to do these podcasts to talk about public policy issues in California, and today we're fortunate enough to have a member, actually the chairman of the Orange County Board of Supervisors, Don Wagner. That's a good title for
It's a
you,
good title. It fits.
and glad you're here.
It sounds good.
For people who really don't know about you, which, I'm not
It's
going to
most
say,
everybody.
I wasn't going to go there, but in fact, you're in your completing your first full term on the Board of Supervisors. You were elected in a special election, and you're moving through your first term, and hopefully there will be a second. And with that, though, it's interesting for me to see in the era of term limits, a lot of people who served in the legislature uh, are term limited out of their legislative spot. You were in the state assembly for 6 years, maximum amount of time under the original Prop 140 term limits, and then coming from state service into local government service. And you served as the mayor of Irvine, directly elected mayor of Irvine, and then on the board of supervisors. So what is that transition? I mean, I think those transitions are beneficial. As some people used to say, serving in local government than state government was beneficial, but I almost think it's even more so from a higher position to the board.
Well, it is an interesting transition, no question. When folks come up out of local government up to Sacramento, one of the things I always thought, and I had served in local government before that, I had been on a college district, so I was in a special district. And one of the things I thought about a lot of my colleagues was they get to Sacramento and they suddenly think they're a whole lot smarter and they're a whole lot funnier and a whole lot better looking than they were the day before the election. But more importantly, they also seem to have forgotten where they had come from and forgotten that local elected leaders also are trying to solve the very same problems they're trying to solve in Sacramento. That the local electeds, though, have maybe a little bit closer finger on the pulse idea of what actually works in a particular community. And the one size fits all that Sacramento is great for doesn't really work. It was a bit disappointing when I was in Sacramento to see those who had come up out of local government forget that. So when I went back to local government, it was kind of like coming home, but it was also knowing that what's coming out of Sacramento, really, they've got a target on us. And what we've got to do is find ways to present creative solutions to the problems that they've identified and are trying their one size fits all approach.
Yeah,
No,
you wonder
we
if
really
that
need to do
is
local
that's
stuff.
always the case, though, right? That there's and maybe it was, maybe it has been that Sacramento discounts what happens on the local level, but it feels a bit more like that, at least today.
Well, it certainly feels like that today. One of the things I'm trying to do on the Board of Supervisors, and we sit on a lot of different regional committees around Orange County, one of the things I'm trying to do is when we come up with our legislative platforms, if I'm on Orange County Transportation Authority, we've got a transportation platform. If I'm on SCAG, we've got the SCAG platform, which deals with housing and various other issues. On all of those, recognize that there are local issues and the local folks are trying to solve those problems and try to find ways to communicate that to Sacramento and say, work with us, don't impose on us, and let's collectively come to the best solutions.
Yeah.
It's a tough challenge.
There's so many points to talk from that. Do all local elected officials work to solve the problems, or do they just get frustrated by the state? But another point, from my perspective at least, serving as mayor after I was in the legislature, it is interesting how staff says, well, we hit a wall because there's a law. And from my perspective, it was always, well, then let's change the law.
Right.
I mean, when you have a legislative awareness and you spend so much time modifying laws, all of a sudden you don't feel the law is necessarily the impediment.
Right.
It's how do you make an argument, maybe change that to address. So that's what you're looking at with the county's legislative
At
platform.
the county legislative platform, it is fair to go up there and say, I know this is the law, but have you thought about this? Can you tweak that? Can you do the other thing? And I know, of course, the answer in Sacramento is, of course you can. All it takes up there is 41 votes in the assembly, it takes 21 in the Senate, and it takes a governor. And you can change anything that's currently in state law. Give them good ideas to fix.
So if you were in Sacramento, you'd be in a minority as a Republican. But,
Very much.
But the point is, and I really do think the public may just feel that the nationwide friction between Republicans and Democrats, conservatives, Democrats, progressives, whatever, um, is this hatred of each other's positions and the lack of getting things done collectively. And I didn't find that during my time in Sacramento. I was in the minority every year except one, thankfully. But the
Brief shining moment. I wish I'd been there.
But are you feeling that one, when you were there was this bipartisan ability to work together and find solutions, and two, is that the same way it is today?
Well, I can speak to when I was up there, certainly. And when I was up there, my thought was that on some of the big ticket items, it was very difficult to be able to move statewide policy. We were not going to be able to fix CEQA. Maybe we could tweak it around the edges, but for example, fixing CEQA was off the table. And it wasn't particularly acrimonious because we were in such a minority position that the Democrats didn't have to grapple with us and our issues. They could just say, fine, thanks for playing, and we've got the votes. So there wasn't the acrimony that you see in Washington, for example, where it is very much contentious and it really does come down to one or two or five swing votes. That was my experience up there. But you still could when you were up there. And what I pretty quickly learned to do was focus on my district. There are things up there that maybe don't fix CEQA, but can make a difference in your district. And focus on bringing those pieces of legislation. The ability to do consensus around those local district issues is still there in Sacramento. And so I was able to work that. I would encourage my colleagues who are up there now to use the same approach.
Yeah.
What is it like up there now?
Yeah.
I know you have a lot of friends up there. Still, I have a lot of friends up there. They tell me it is a lot worse than when I was there, and certainly a lot worse than when you were there. There still are opportunities to help your constituents.
Yeah. So what you're referencing is what is known in Sacramento as a district bill, which really has a single purpose to help solve this, in most cases, localized problem that somebody has.
Exactly.
And there is the ability to do that. I mean, one Republican legislator from Orange County, he got elected a few years ago. I asked him, "What are you getting done? How are things? How are things in Sacramento? Are you getting anything done? Any bills passed?" And he looked at me credulously. I think I said that without stumbling over it. But he said, "Curt, I'm a Republican. We're a minority. We sit on the back bench until there's a majority." And it was like one of the worst things I heard anybody say.
That's
like,
a failure of imagination.
It is.
Right there.
Or
Yes.
cooperation, building relationships, finding common ground with people. And I had agreements with John Burton, the most liberal legislator in California at the time. And, I count him as a friend. And there are times we could find things that we agreed
Right.
on if we worked on them.
Well, I was there during the majority of John Perez's role as speaker.
Yes.
And managed to have John come down to my swearing in for county supervisor. I remember the two of you stood and chatted together at that event. It is possible to find that common ground.
Yeah, you know what? I've been thinking about this, and maybe it's a element of term limits because if the general public has this the cynicism that government is bad or one side of the political aisle is bad and their side is good, then all of a sudden, or all legislators are corrupt, then a lot of these new people to office bring that kind of that base understanding of what they believe happens in Sacramento or in Congress. And you see, I think that is a challenge. I don't think enough people talk about how you can work together, even when you're in a very, very minuscule minority like Republicans are in Sacramento today. There are plenty of things to find common ground over.
Well, I'd be curious your take, because I think I would agree with you completely. One of the things that I discovered, or I believe to be true after my many years in Sacramento and also in local government, is look, I've had to work with a lot of folks who are on the other side of the aisle, and they're going to disagree with me on policy. There are very few of them that I would ascribe bad faith to.
Right.
Most of them, in my opinion, are doing what they think is the right thing. Now, I may think they're just completely wrong,
Boy,
completely
this
wrong
is a family presentation.
about whatever their particular policy solution is.
Yeah,
But
right.
I give them credit for not going to bed thinking, how can I mess up California tomorrow?
Right.
And I hope they give me the same. Wagner may be wrong, but he's trying. Let's find where we can work together.
I totally agree with that premise, as well as I don't look at every legislator today or people I served with and thought they were all crooks.
No,
Yet the
no.
general public believes, oh my gosh, these legislators are all on the take, or these elected officials are. Now I'm a former, you're a current elected official, so of course, some people would say, that's just the way they believe. But I actually can't even think during my time of anyone who I even had suspicion was in that category,
I will agree.
except the ones that were prosecuted.
There were one or two
Right.
who have actually been prosecuted,
Right. Exactly.
and good. There's no place for that
Right.
in public life. But it is, if it's the majority of them, they sure have me fooled, and
Right.
I'm naive. I just don't think it is.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and again, in my perspective is, and folks can believe this out there in the public or not, but I mean, I've never even been approached.
Right.
Someone would have to be a fool and have paid no attention to me in my career to say, hey, Wagner, would you like this extra, whatever it is? It's like,
Right.
it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And I think that is true of the overwhelming majority.
Right.
Sadly, not all. And they give the rest of us a bad name.
Yeah. Exactly. So, sitting as a member of the Board of Supervisors, in this case, this year, as the chair, I don't know if people really understand the size and impact of county government in terms of multi-billion-dollar budgets and health and welfare programs that are administered, law enforcement programs, public safety programs, even enterprise opportunities like the airport and running that. So, maybe quickly, since I covered most of it, why don't you?
You got it.
No,
You
but
nailed it.
really,
No.
what is the size of the budget? What is the impact on people's lives from county?
Our budget is $8.8 billion, which really is a lot of money. And we touch so much, and you hit on a bunch of them. We obviously have responsibility for the sheriff's department and public safety, but also for both the district attorney and the public defender's office. We fund both of those, and the elected district attorney runs the district attorney's office, but answers to the board in a lot of what he ends up having to do in his operation. So we touch public safety. The county is a member of the Orange County Fire Authority. My district is one of the ones that is most impacted by wildfires and the floods that come through the canyons, et cetera. We are on that aspect of public safety as well. But there's the healthcare agency. Now we've just been dealing with COVID, which sort of monopolized everybody's time and attention. And that comes right under the control of the healthcare agency and the Board of Supervisors. And then we've got the things like our parks, like our public works. You've got things like social services agencies and dealing with the really the social safety net. There's an enormous amount that this county touches. We set up a few years ago, and I'm sure you're familiar with Cal Optima. There are over 900,000 individuals who are served by Cal Optima. Their healthcare is provided through Cal Optima, and we are, I think, making a significant difference in their lives, keeping them healthier and providing for them. And so there's just an enormous amount of stuff that the county government does. And as a small government guy, it maybe is a little bit troubling. But what we do is try to make it as efficient as possible. And our budget at $8.8 billion is going to be less next year and a bit stressed. So we've got to be careful.
See, I think we need to spend a little more time talking about the uniqueness of Orange County and how Orange County and the perspective people have here chose different ways to solve problems. And, I was in the legislature when a lot of that was happening, the establishment of Cal Optima, and it mainly was, here's all this money to provide the services to people in need. And most counties have county hospitals. and that's where those state and federal dollars
Right.
went. But yet Orange County created its own program called CalOptima, which really brought in a whole bunch of private providers,
Mhm.
insurance companies, others, to be able to provide those healthcare services. I mean, is it still seen as a unique, positive program versus fully funding a county hospital?
So I think a lot of that history has been lost over the course of the last several years.
That is my age issue, that I was involved in public policy for way too long. But good. I'm glad to hear it might
Right.
just be that.
I think that that's a large part of it. That we've got this beast called CalOptima, and why? Why is it so unique? Well, the answer does go back to the fact that we don't have county hospitals. LA County, all the other counties have, the majority have their own systems, and this is different. We don't. What we have done with CalOptima, and what I think is unique to Orange County and a testament to Orange County, is that we have brought the private providers in. It isn't a government solution entirely. It is maybe one of the original public-private partnerships before those were all the rage, and rightly so, in terms of government providing services and bringing private providers in to help. And so CalOptima maybe was the pioneer. Some of the history has been lost, and CalOptima maybe has taken on sort of its own unique stature. But at the end of the day, it does a very good job of providing for folks who otherwise aren't going to be able to access the private market,
Yep.
who otherwise just need that kind of health care that they can't get, and they can't go to a county hospital to get it.
Right.
CalOptima fills that niche.
Yeah. And from a conservative point of view, it was so those services aren't all government employees and run through a government system, that they have ability to access the private sector system.
Right.
And during the last couple of years, the COVID emergency was established by the federal and state government, and local governments followed suit.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple things about that. Did the county lose out? Did the residents of this county lose because government was stymied for 2 years during COVID?
They lost. I think everyone in the state of California lost because the state's handling of COVID was horrific. The fact is, in Orange County, we came through COVID an awful lot better than did our surrounding counties. And it is undeniable. You look at any metric, case rates per 100,000, or hospital rates, or ventilators, or death rates of to take the worst case scenario, our numbers per capita are better than any of our surrounding counties. Once again, it's a testament to Orange County. We do things differently. We are willing to take care of folks ourselves. We just don't want government to mandate it. Government did mandate shutdowns of business. It did mandate that the schools close, and the county had no role in that whatsoever. In fact, we opposed it back in April of 2020. In some of the earlier days of COVID, the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Steele and I, wrote guidelines, and the board passed them unanimously, allowing businesses, if you follow these practices, we, the county, will not come after you. The governor didn't care, and he still sent the CHP down here to close down our beaches and write tickets.
ABC.
He sent ABC to close down your business if you had a restaurant, a liquor license. He sent Cal OSHA down here if you had a workplace that had employees, and there was not a thing we could do about it. We never imposed a single restriction in Orange County that was tougher than what the state absolutely mandated.
Are we still in a state of emergency for COVID?
Technically, the answer is yes. The governor has said that he will eliminate his state of emergency the end of this month. February 28th is what he said. It's been a bit of a moving target, but this one has stuck for a while. And the board took action over a year ago to essentially say no in certain terms. The moment the state's state of emergency ends, ours ends as well. It needs to go away. Thankfully, it will on the 28th.
Yeah, hopefully. So the Board of Supervisors every year selects one of your own to be chair.
Mm-hmm.
You're in that capacity
today.
today. It's not the first time you've been chair of the Board of Supervisors.
Yes, it is.
It is.
This is the first time I've been chair of this board. Yeah.
Wow.
I've been there that
Did they make a
long.
mistake
I think
now or in the preceding few years? So what are the added powers, and what what are you looking to do when you carry that mantle? I mean, in this
great.
year, what's special?
So the answer, are there added powers? Yes, there are, and it's mostly control of the or a closer control of the agenda. If one of my colleagues wants to put something onto the agenda past a certain deadline, they have to get the chair's approval. And so there is a little bit more control of the agenda. I run the meetings, but at the end of the day, I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to be heard, and so we're all going to call on each other and be respectful. Um, it does seem, as I've been doing this now for about the last month, there are a whole lot more social engagements or engagements out in the
No,
community.
that's what you need. I'm sure that's what you look forward to.
It's a great community, and I don't get to complain. I asked for the job. So I'm finding myself out at various community and countywide events where I would be just in my district otherwise. And so in that sense, that's what's new to it. What are the things to look forward to this year? Well, first of all, you got to say, with COVID going away and getting that state of emergency behind us, it is going to be good to get back to some semblance of normal and try to deal with our homeless situation in an organized manner rather than, oh my goodness, we have to stand up all these new shelters and all of these hotels so that we can physically distance our folks in our shelters more than we might otherwise. It's trying to deal with the homeless issue in a much more rational and coherent way. One of the things also that I'm going to spend the year doing is watching that budget, because remember, $8.8 billion, we talked about that. But if it weren't for the money, and it's over $1.2 billion that came to us from the federal government and through the state for COVID relief, our budget wouldn't be balanced. And that money is going away. They just can't afford to keep throwing money at counties and states
Some
and
think
cities.
so, but
I fear they won't be throwing it at us.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to, whatever we do it with much closer eye on the budget. And as a limited government conservative who recognizes that my constituents' pocketbooks are as stretched as the government's, if not more stretched in these current times, you can't keep going back to the well.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be watching out for that as well.
So
And
my
then-
final thought, though, is
Oh,
the chair,
okay.
chair of the board of supervisors. You know the power of that title. However, Mike Antonovich, when he was chair of the board of supervisors in Los Angeles, he realized the title of mayor was much more impressive and understandable by the public than the
Yeah.
title of chair. So he created a name which has sustained itself in Los Angeles. You can be called the mayor of the county of Los Angeles there. Do you think that's a better title for you?
I'm going to look into that, because it's funny, but you're absolutely right. I've had so many people ask me, well, why would you give up mayor of Irvine to go be county supervisor? What's that? And of course, it is a much bigger and much more opportunity to move public policy on the board of supervisors. But mayor, people get.
Right.
And folks.
It's a much better ballot title. Let's
That
just
was
be
great.
honest.
They'll play with their rotation to get the right people as mayor the year they're running for re-election. I went to China as a member of the legislature. They could care less, but I had been elected. I hadn't been sworn in yet, but I had been elected mayor of Irvine, and they were like, "Oh, mayor of Irvine. Well, we know." So, mayor of Orange County. I kind of like that.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it's great to have you spending a few minutes with us, and thanks for making time, Don,
Pleasure's mine.
and speaking before the folks. And thank you for watching Talking Issues.